Co-op has a reputation. Ethical, community-focused, better than the big supermarkets. That's what they want you to believe. But I've spoken to employees who've worked behind the scenes, and what they've told me will completely change how you see this company. Those higher prices you're paying, they're not going to better quality or ethical practices. The local claim is mostly marketing, and the cooperative model that's supposed to make them different. It's barely more than a membership scheme that benefits the company, not you. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to expose what's really happening at Co-op. The pricing tricks, the quality issues, the misleading claims. By the end, you'll understand why shopping at Co-op might be the worst decision you're making. Number 12. The ethical washing. Let's start with the biggest lie. Co-op markets itself as the ethical choice. They talk about fair trade, sustainable sourcing, and community values. It's all over their branding. But employees have told me the reality is very different. A former manager told me, the ethical messaging was purely marketing. Behind the scenes, we operated exactly like any other supermarket. Cheaper suppliers, maximum profit margins, minimal concern for anything except the bottom line. Look at their fair trade range. Yes, they stock fair trade products, but so does every other supermarket. The difference is that Co-op charges more and positions itself as morally superior for doing the bare minimum. Their own brand products? Mostly sourced from the same suppliers as Tesco and Sainsbury's. The same factories, same production lines, same quality standards. The only difference is the Co-op label and a 20% price premium. An employee told me about their locally sourced claims. We'd put local sourcing stickers on products that came from suppliers hundreds of miles away. The definition of local was so broad it was meaningless. If it was produced anywhere in the UK, we could call it local. This is deliberate deception. Customers pay more because they believe they're supporting local businesses and ethical practices. In reality, they're just paying inflated prices for the same products available cheaper elsewhere. The fair trade premium is particularly egregious. Co-op charges 30 to 40% more for fair trade items compared to competitors. They justify this by claiming higher ethical standards. But the fair trade certification is the same regardless of which retailer sells it. Co-op heavily promotes its commitment to reducing plastic. They've made big announcements about removing plastic from their own brand packaging. But walk into any Co-op and you'll see shelves full of plastic wrap products. The reduction only applies to a small fraction of their range. An employee explained how this works. We'd make a big deal about removing plastic from maybe 10 products. We'd get press coverage, awards, and positive publicity. Meanwhile, 90% of our store was still packed with plastic, but customers only remembered the positive messaging. Number 11. The pricing scam. Co-op is expensive. Everyone knows this. But what you might not know is that the prices aren't justified by quality or ethics. They're inflated purely because Co-op knows they can get away with it. A former pricing manager told me, we'd price products based on what we thought customers would pay, not on our costs plus a reasonable margin. If a customer would pay £2 for something that cost us 50p, we'd charge £2. Compare Co-op prices to other supermarkets. A basket of identical items costs on average 25% more at Co-op. That's not a small difference. That's an extra £50 per month for a typical family. What are you getting for that extra money? Nothing. The products are the same. The quality is often worse. But Co-op has positioned itself as a premium, ethical option, so customers accept the higher prices. Let me give you specific examples. A 4-pint bottle of milk at Tesco costs £1.20. At Co-op, it's £1.65. Same milk, same supplier, 37% more expensive. A loaf of own brand bread at Sainsbury's costs 95p. At Co-op, it's £1.35, 42% more expensive, for bread that's likely made in the same factory. Free-range eggs at Asda cost £2 for 12. At Co-op, they're £2.75. Again, same farms, same standards, higher price. These price differences add up quickly. If you're doing a weekly shop at Co-op instead of a mainstream supermarket, you're wasting hundreds of pounds per year for absolutely no benefit. Co-op frequently runs deals that aren't actually deals. An employee told me, we'd inflate prices for a few weeks, then reduce them back to normal and call it a promotion. Customers thought they were getting a bargain when they were just paying regular price. The member pricing is another scam. Co-op offers special prices for members. Sounds good until you realize the member price is often what the product should cost anyway. Non-members are just being overcharged deliberately to make membership seem valuable. Number 10. The quality issues. You'd think that paying premium prices at Co-op would guarantee better quality. It doesn't. In fact, employees have told me the quality is often worse than budget supermarkets. A former fresh food manager said, "Our produce arrived already past its best. We'd get deliveries of fruit and vegetables that had been rejected by larger supermarkets. We'd still put them out because we needed stock on shelves. Walk into a Co-op and look at the fresh produce section. The apples are bruised, the bananas are overripe, the salad leaves are wilting. This isn't unusual. This is standard. Why does this happen? Because Co-op stores are small and scattered. They don't have the buying power or logistics infrastructure of larger chains. So they get lower quality products from suppliers. An employee told me about the fresh meat. The meat came from the same suppliers as other supermarkets, but we'd get the cuts they didn't want. The pieces with more fat, the smaller portions, and the items approaching their use-by dates. Then we'd charge premium prices for them. The own brand products are similarly poor quality. Their pasta sauce is watery with minimal flavour. Their biscuits are dry and crumbly. Their ready meals are small portions with cheap ingredients. You're paying more for less. A former employee told me about the ready meals specifically. They were made by the same companies that produce budget range meals for other supermarkets. Same recipes, same ingredients, different packaging. We just charge double the price. The fresh bakery section is particularly bad. Items labelled as freshly baked are actually par-baked products that arrive frozen and get finished in store. The same system as every other supermarket, but Co-op charges artisan prices. The milk is another issue. Co-op sources from the same dairies as everyone else, but their milk consistently has a shorter shelf life. I've bought milk from Co-op that's gone off 2 days before the use-by date. This suggests poor temperature control in their supply chain. Number 9. The membership con. Co-op's big selling point is that it's a cooperative. You become a member, you get benefits, and you have a say in how the company runs. Except it's mostly a con designed to lock you into shopping there. A former employee told me, "The membership scheme was brilliant for Co-op. Customers paid to join, which gave us their data and made them feel invested in the company. Then they'd shop with us more to maximize their member benefits, even though they were paying more overall." Let's break down what membership actually gives you. You get member prices on selected items. You earn points on purchases. You get a vote in company decisions. Sounds good, right? Here's the reality. The member prices are still more expensive than regular prices at other supermarkets. The points are worth about 1% of your spending, which is pathetic compared to other loyalty schemes. And your vote means nothing because major decisions are made by the board, not by members. An employee explained how the voting works. We'd hold member votes on trivial issues that didn't matter, which charity to support, what products to stock, and minor policy decisions. But the big stuff, pricing strategy, executive pay, major business decisions, that was all decided behind closed doors. The membership fee creates a sunk cost. Your brain tells you that you need to shop at Co-op to get value from your membership. So you end up spending more there just to justify the fee. The point system is deliberately complex. You earn different rates on different products. Some items give double points, others give nothing. The points expire if you don't use them. And when you redeem them, the value is poor. Compare this to Tesco Clubcard or Sainsbury's Nectar. Those programs are free to join, offer better value, and don't require you to pay for membership. Co-op charges you for the privilege of earning worse rewards. Number 8. The convenience trap. Co-op's main advantage is convenience. They have small stores in residential areas, often within walking distance. This is how they justify their high prices. But employees have told me this convenience comes at a much higher cost than just money. A former store manager said, "The convenience factor meant we could charge whatever we wanted. Customers were trapped. They'd either walk 10 minutes to Co-op or drive 15 minutes to a proper supermarket. Most chose Co-op even though it cost them more. This is called captive market pricing. When customers don't have easy alternatives, you can overcharge them, and Co-op does this aggressively. The small store format also means limited selection. You can't do a proper weekly shop at Co-op. You can only buy basics and top-up items. But those basics are so overpriced that your top-up shop costs as much as a full shop would elsewhere. The checkout queues are deliberately slow. Co-op stores often have only 1 or 2 tills open, even during busy periods. This isn't because they're understaffed. It's because slow checkouts give you more time to see promotional displays and add impulse items to your basket. The convenience trap also extends to opening hours. Co-op stores often open early and close late. This seems customer-friendly, but it's actually another way to capture sales when other options aren't available. If you need milk at 10 in the evening, your only option might be Co-op. They know this, so they charge you £2 for a bottle that costs £1.20 anywhere else. You're paying a desperation premium. Number 7. The stock management disaster. One of the most frustrating things about Co-op is its stock management. Items are constantly out of stock. Shelves are empty. The products you bought last week have been discontinued. A former employee said, "Our ordering system was terrible. We'd run out of basics like bread and milk multiple times per week. Then we'd have a huge overstock of items nobody wanted. It was chaos." This happens because Co-op stores are small and supplied by a limited distribution network. They don't have the sophisticated logistics systems of larger supermarkets. The result? You go in for a specific item, and it's not there. So you either buy a more expensive alternative, or you waste a trip. Either way, Co-op has failed you. An employee told me about the fresh food waste. We'd overorder because we knew we'd run out otherwise. Then we'd have to throw away massive amounts of food that didn't sell. The waste was shocking. But management didn't care because the prices were so high that we couldn't afford the waste. The use-by dates on QRP products are also suspiciously short. I've compared identical products from Co-op and other supermarkets. The Co-op version consistently has a use-by date several days earlier. If you're shocked by what you've heard so far, hit that subscribe button. We're only halfway through, and what's coming next will make you never want to shop at Co-op again. Number 6. The staff treatment. Co-op claims to care about people. They talk about being a fair employer, supporting their staff, and creating a positive workplace. Employees have told me the opposite is true. A former employee said, "I worked at Co-op for 3 years. The pay was minimum wage. The hours were unpredictable. The management was terrible. There was nothing ethical about how they treated us." Co-op pays the legal minimum wage in most positions. They talk about being a living wage employer, but the living wage they're referring to is the government minimum, not the real living wage calculated by the Living Wage Foundation. The difference matters. The real living wage is currently over £10.50 per hour. Co-op pays around £9.50. That's 10% less than what employees actually need to live. An employee told me about the shift patterns. We'd get our rota 1 week in advance, sometimes less. This made it impossible to plan anything. And if we complained, they'd reduce our hours the next week. The stores are chronically understaffed. One person might be expected to run an entire store alone during quiet periods. This means operating the till, restocking shelves, dealing with deliveries, and handling customer complaints all at once. The training is minimal. New employees get a few hours of induction, then they're expected to know everything. There's no ongoing training, no career development, no investment in staff. The management culture is also toxic. Store managers are under intense pressure to hit sales targets and minimize costs. This pressure gets passed down to regular staff who have no control over these things. Number 5. The security theater. Walk into a Co-op and you'll notice something immediately. Security. Cameras everywhere. Security tags on everything. Guards at the door. It feels more like a prison than a shop. An employee told me, "The security was intense. We treated every customer like a potential thief. It created a hostile atmosphere. People hated shopping with us because they felt like they were being watched constantly." Co-op has some of the highest shoplifting rates in UK retail. Rather than asking why this is happening, they've just ramped up security. The result is an unpleasant shopping experience for everyone. The security tags are particularly excessive. Items that cost £2 have security tags. Bottles of wine are kept behind locked cabinets. You need to press a buzzer and wait for the staff to unlock basic items. This is insulting to customers. You're being treated as a criminal just for wanting to buy a bottle of wine, and it's massively inconvenient when stores are understaffed and nobody's available to unlock the cabinet. The cameras are networked with facial recognition. If you've been flagged for suspicious behavior in one Co-op, every Co-op in the network knows about you. This is serious surveillance technology being deployed in corner shops. There's no transparency about how this data is used, how long it's kept, or who has access to it. Number 4. The community myth. Co-op heavily promotes its community involvement. They donate to local causes, sponsor community projects, and position themselves as the supermarket that cares. Employees have told me this is mostly PR. A former manager said, "The community fund was tiny compared to our profits. We donate a few £1,000s per year and get millions in positive publicity. It was incredibly cost-effective marketing." Look at the numbers. Co-op made profits of over £75 million last year. Their community fund distributed around £13 million. That's less than 20% of profits going back to communities. Compare this to the amount they extract from those same communities through overpricing. If Co-op charged fair prices, communities would save far more money than they receive through the community fund. An employee explained how the community fund works. Members vote on which local causes to support. This creates engagement and makes people feel involved, but the actual amounts donated are small. The causes that get funded are also carefully selected. Co-op won't support anything controversial or politically challenging. They fund safe, uncontroversial projects that generate good publicity without rocking any boats. Number 3. The funeral exploitation. Here's something most people don't know. Co-op runs the UK's largest funeral business, and employees have told me they exploit grieving families in ways that should be illegal. A former funeral director said, "The pressure to upsell was intense. We'd target vulnerable, grieving people and convince them to spend thousands more than necessary. It was disgusting." When someone dies, their family is in shock. They're not thinking clearly. They're emotional and vulnerable. This is when co-op funeral directors push expensive packages, premium caskets, and elaborate services. An employee told me, "We had sales targets for funeral services. We'd get bonuses for selling more expensive packages. The incentive structure encouraged us to exploit people at their most vulnerable. The pricing is deliberately opaque. Funeral costs aren't clearly advertised. You don't know what things cost until you're sitting in a meeting with a funeral director who's presenting options while you're still processing your grief. A basic funeral at Co-op costs around £4,000, but the average funeral they sell costs over £7,000. That extra £3,000 comes from upselling unnecessary services and premium options." An employee explained, "We'd suggest things like premium caskets, limousines, elaborate flower arrangements. We'd frame these as ways to honor the deceased. Families felt guilty saying no. The funeral industry is largely unregulated. Co-op takes advantage of this to charge whatever they want. And because people don't shop around when planning funerals, they get away with it. This is perhaps the most unethical thing Co-op does. They claim to be an ethical company while actively exploiting bereaved families for profit." Number 2. The insurance scam. Co-op also sells insurance. Car insurance, home insurance, life insurance. And according to employees, their insurance products are overpriced and difficult to claim against. A former insurance advisor said, "We were trained to sell policies, not to ensure customers got appropriate cover. We'd push add-ons and premium features that most people didn't need." Compare Co-op insurance quotes to comparison sites. In almost every case, Co-op is more expensive than competitors for identical cover, often significantly more expensive. Why would anyone buy insurance from Co-op when it's clearly overpriced? Because of brand trust. People assume Co-op will be fair and ethical. They're wrong. An employee told me about the claims process. When customers tried to claim, we'd look for any reason to deny or reduce the payout. Pre-existing conditions, policy exclusions, technical violations of terms. The life insurance is particularly bad. Co-op sells over 50s life insurance with massive premiums and relatively small payouts. These policies are often terrible value, but they're marketed heavily to elderly people who don't understand the math. Number 1. The environmental hypocrisy. Co-op talks constantly about their environmental commitments. They've pledged to be carbon neutral. They promote recyclable packaging. They talk about sustainable sourcing, but employees have told me the reality doesn't match the rhetoric. A former employee said, "The environmental stuff was all for show. Behind the scenes, we generated massive amounts of waste. Food waste, packaging waste, energy waste. Nobody actually cared about the environment. Walk behind a Co-op store and you'll see bins overflowing with waste. Food that's been thrown away unnecessarily. Packaging materials that aren't being recycled." An employee told me about the waste procedures. "We were supposed to sort waste for recycling, but when stores were busy, everything just went in the regular bins. Management knew this was happening, but didn't enforce the rules. The carbon neutral claim is also questionable. Co-op achieves this largely through carbon offsetting, which means paying other people to reduce emissions rather than reducing their own. The packaging reduction has been minimal. Co-op made headlines about removing plastic from some products, but the vast majority of their range is still plastic wrapped. The truth is, Co-op is struggling. Sales are declining. They're closing stores. They're cutting staff. The business model isn't working. A former manager told me, Co-op is dying. They've priced themselves out of the market. Customers are realizing they can get the same products cheaper elsewhere, and the ethical branding isn't enough to justify the premium anymore. The convenience factor that kept Co-op alive is diminishing. Online shopping means you don't need a local store. Rapid delivery from larger supermarkets means convenience is available everywhere. So Co-op is caught between budget supermarkets that offer lower prices and premium retailers that offer genuine quality. They're more expensive than most stores and with poor quality too. Shopping there means you're paying more for less. So go to proper supermarkets where you'll get better value, better quality and honest pricing. Have you been wasting money at Co-op? Share your experiences in the comments. And if this opened your eyes, share it with friends and family. Subscribe for more truth about where your money really goes. Because companies like Co-op rely on you not knowing what they're really doing. See you in the next one.